Hey everyone, Pete Erickson here with Modev, part of our Meet the Speakers series for those who are shaping the industry at voice and AI. My next guest is someone who I've actually known for a few years. She is a real trailblazer when it comes to the industry. She's got a really interesting and unique background and has turned some of her personal struggles into some of her superpowers. And we'll get into that a little bit here. But I'm so lucky, I'm so fortunate in the role that I am as an event organizer to meet people like Shyamala Prayaga, our next guest. She is a product manager at NVIDIA working on large language models, generative AI. We'll get more into that. She's also a esteemed author of multiple books that we'll talk about. And I'm excited to bring up my next guest, Shyamala. Shyamala, how are you doing?
Hey, Pete, I'm doing good. How are you?
You know what? It is never a dull moment in the life of an event organizer, but I'm doing fantastic. And what really makes that so is I just get to meet and talk with so many interesting and fun people, yourself included. We've known each other for some time now, and I would say that, you know, how much our lives have changed in a year. Just kind of given that, you know, this is the year of AI, but you really saw this coming. Let's talk a little bit about your background. And I mentioned that, you know, you manage products that are right in the sweet spot for NVIDIA. Let's talk about that professionally. Give us an overview of your role at NVIDIA, and then we're going to dig into some of the things that I think make you so unique.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, I'm a product manager at NVIDIA, and I solely focus on the deep learning product, deep learning suites. So generative AI happens to be a part of that. So basically, my role is thinking about the different kind of AI models which is out in the market, and then looking at what advancement might come, looking at building new AI models, but also building the interfaces. So for example, we have our own early access product called the Nemo service. So I build the interface for that, so that we're not just building our best models out there for generative AI, computer vision, or for BioNemo, which is our drug discovery, or any of the domains, but we are also allowing customers to try it out through an easy to use interface and explore it and see what the capabilities we can offer. So that's basically it. I do a lot of road mapping, talking to the customers, early access, and stuffs like that to build up the product. And yeah, it's really exciting to be doing constant research about what's happening in the industry and bringing those things into life.
Well, it's a lot, and it is right at the edge of where innovation is today with generative AI, and NVIDIA certainly is playing such a pivotal role in this next generation of technologies. And it is fascinating to see what the company has, you know, unleashed, and that, you know, moving a lot of that compute into the cloud is making generative AI all the more accessible. Let's talk a little bit about your background. You've written multiple books relative to the industry. The Emotionally Engaged Digital Assistant was your last, you know, professional title. But before that, you wrote a book called Closed Calls. And it's a really interesting book. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about the, you know, the inspiration behind that book, because I just found it was moving for me.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You know, I always wanted to be an author. Growing up as a child, I've seen so many miracles. Maybe because I come from a very spiritual background. You know, growing up, my mom used to make sure we are going to these retreats and all. So I always had this spiritual mindset. But it was not until when I was detected with cancer that I realized, you know, when I was doing retrospective, like when things are going all over negative for you, you'll only look at negatives, right? That's what happens for many people. So actually, someone told me to, you know, be grateful for the things which you have. And when I started practicing the gratitude, and when I started looking at all the things in retrospective, what has happened with me, even the layoff, you know, at Amazon and all the different things, I figured there was a miracle behind each of the things which has happened in the life. And my wish of becoming an author, which I always used to say, anything used to happen in my life, I used to say, one day I will write a book about it. So that day came eventually where I felt like I have so much blessing in my life. I should be talking about those things. I should be talking about how I overcame, or how I look at life as a miracle with all the different things which has happened, and my practices or my approach or my daily rituals which has helped me keep that focus in mind.
Well, that's just the book is called Closed Calls. I highly recommend it. And your story, just what you just shared with us, and the role that you're sitting in now at the very edge of industry with the top company in the world in AI. And I think it's because you looked at the blessings and instead of the challenges, and overcame them at a level that I just think is so inspirational. So and thank you for writing that book, and thank you for sharing that with us. So a little bit more, mundane is the book, Conversational, Emotionally Engaged Digital Assistants. But really, when it comes to where we are in the world of technology, not mundane at all, because you were writing books about this topic before all of this became a household name now. Tell us a little bit about the book, but also how you see the industry has changed since you first started writing, putting pen to paper on that book.
Yeah, it's interesting that the book is so much relevant now, much more than what it was when I started writing. So I solely wrote that book because as I was building these voice assistants for different providers, right? I figured that yes, there's one side of the story which I understand is the development and what goes into designing and developing those voice assistants, and it also includes the kind of we have to launch something immediately or within the next few months, and then what kind of push gates. So the thought process alone, like how the technology is designed, or how the experience is designed, or how it is thought about as a product, is so different. It's very, very different versus being on the other side, where I've seen my family using it, my parents and my son wanting to talk with, because I was fortunate enough to bring these test devices, Alexa test devices, home even before it was launched. Being part of the process is very interesting. So I got to do a lot of testing with these assistants, and I saw my son, who was 3 at that time, interacting with Alexa in so many different ways, and there was so much excitement. And he used to, with his broken English and with his accent, which was not very much matured by then, try to speak, and Alexa was like, sorry, I did not understand, and all the things happening. I figured, like, what's happening? And then I saw my mother, who doesn't know English at all. Like, she would have a very, very broken English, and she would try to form sentences. And the kind of connection people are trying to make with these different virtual assistants, voice assistants, right? And then the gaps which I have seen from all the aspects, like being part of the design itself or the development itself, and being part of the user, or seeing the end user experience. I figured there's a lot of gaps, like from the design, from the technology, the accents are not understood, the slangs are not understood. And thanks to ChatGPT, now things are coming to life in a different form, but not 100% yet. But at least generative AI is changing some of that. And it's interesting to see also from ethics and privacy, which is becoming so much more important now as we speak with the generative AI. So I thought about all the different things which builds up, and I created I still have the diagram in the book somewhere, which talks about the tip of the iceberg. What the user sees is the experience, right? Like you and I talking, we'll see the experience. So people will only see the tip of the iceberg, but below the iceberg, there are like 20 different things which needs to be thought about, from privacy to ethics, to be thinking about inclusivity, accessibility, to the design, to the technology, to what kind of data we are capturing, the analytics aspect, what kind of voice we are selecting, what kind of intelligence we want, because people want an intelligent voice assistant. And I've heard on and on, over and over again, that the more it is intelligent, it is able to understand me, I will be able to trust it more. So there's a lot of business value also. So voice assistants or virtual assistants are not the ones just sitting at our home, right? There's so many more use cases, from IVR and customer care, business, and now we are seeing virtual assistants even in like kiosks, airports, everywhere. So I figured that we need to talk about it more, and talk about it in the fact that we have to humanize it. And when I talk about
Right.
humanizing, it's like thinking about every user, like instead of being very reactive about it and designing like, okay, this product is launched, it's very successful, but what about this language? Okay, now let's add in this language because it was never thought about. Or, oh my God, we never thought about these people whose accent is not understood or voices are not understood. So we as an industry has been very, very reactive to all the solutions technology. And ChatGPT or generative AI or any of these things are not new or not,
Right.
I would say like it's again the same thing. We are going very reactive with it. Like something is happening now, we are talking about regulations and policies, right? But why are we not thinking about it right from the beginning when we are designing the product? Why are we not thinking about the right kind of users? So this book actually talks about all the different things and also suggest some frameworks and some techniques like how we can think about humanizing every aspect. So that's what the book is about.
I love it. Humanizing technology and design. The book is Emotionally Engaged Digital Assistant. I highly encourage anybody that's in this space to read it because you're right. Design has to be human first. So some of the things that you're going to talk about at the conference, you're going to sit on a panel talking about bias in AI, bias and ethics in AI. I think it's something that is on top of everybody's mind because we know that the data that we have as human beings isn't great, right? And so if we're training machines based on just pure data, that's going to be a challenge, right? So yeah, so I think it's something we got to tackle. Let's talk a little bit about that panel. What if I'm going to attend that panel? What am I going to learn? And what are going to be some of the takeaways that I'm going to leave with?
So first and foremost, ethics, like you mentioned, is so much important, right? We have to be thinking about ethics in so many different shapes and forms. We're talking about generative AI, which is text to text, text to image, text to 3D, text to everything, literally, right? What does that mean? People have a lot of worries about people losing jobs. People have worries about what happens to, my privacy. But then someone recently asked me, like, as these generative AI systems become more robust, like, what happens to? So, for example, I was able to generate generative photographed version of myself, like my headshots, and they were like very close to what I look, right? And it's interesting. So, what does that mean? Like, where do we draw the line? We are talking about these generative AIs, ChatGPT cracking exams, like difficult exams and all. We are talking about generative AI and the fear of how it can increase the malpractice in medical field. Or we are talking about all these negative things. There are a lot of positives, lot of benefit out of it, right? But we're also seeing like someone tried using generative AI in their office, uploaded the entire code to ChatGPT, and the data was compromised. We are hearing these kind of stories. So what does that mean as a user? Like, what is ethical for me? How should I use these devices or these technologies? But as a business, what is ethical? Some countries are banning ChatGPT, or some countries are not saying like, give me more information on how you have trained the model, right? Some companies are completely banning it, saying like, no, we don't want it. But there are other companies also who's thinking about how do we actually create our own custom version. There are companies who are building their own variant of GPT, right? Leveraging the model. So companies are coming with all these different use cases. Then there are other type of companies who are coming with gaming, and they're saying we want to design conversation for bad characters, because we are gaming companies and we have bad characters as well. What does that mean? Like, how all of these things, when we have and you put everything in perspective, you have the pros and cons, which is like equal, right? But at the same time, how are we thinking about the ethical aspects of it or the responsibility aspect of it? So this panel is going to talk about the process, or how do we think about it as an industry, like what should we do? And there are a lot of things in the industry which is already making steps, right? So do we pause, or do we continue, or do we have clear regulations, or is this more like having a responsible take from the beginning, like what Anthropic IO is trying to do? So this is what the talk is all going to be about.
Well, I think it's such an important conversation right now, and we're so thrilled that that your voice is a part of this industry, that your voice is going to be part of voice and AI this year. It's such a fascinating year. What do you think is maybe what do you think is a myth of the industry that you think is what do you think is something that is maybe a fear that's unfounded in the industry? Are there anything you think about?
Uh, I would say like I mean, there's a lot of things. We are talking about all these technologies or all these solutions, like independently. We're talking about metahumans. I can create
Right.
my own AI avatar. We're talking about synthetic voices. And now generative AI is able to do that. Like I can create my voice, but also create the entire dialogue, right? So, but we're not putting everything in perspective from the deepfake standpoint. We are looking at deepfake or issues like these from very, very, like focused lens, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that we're looking at, oh my god, someone tried defaking my voice, or what happens on
Right.
that aspect. Someone is defaking my photo is available everywhere. Anyone can go to a low code platform, no code platform, upload it, create my metahuman, and create my voice. And what happens if everything is brought together for misuse? Someone There was a deepfake of Pentagon and someone blowing it up, right? So there's a lot more threats which we have to think about and work backwards from there. And I feel like instead of looking at these solutions or AI as independent aspects, we should be looking at it in a holistic way first of all, and then look at like what are the steps we have to take. Because AI, we cannot stop AI. The evolution
Yeah.
has been going on forever. In fact, I fell in love with AI when I first heard about it in 2000, in 1999. So
Right.
AI was not matured enough, but that is when I figured like this is something which is going to go big, and I figured this is where I want to be. So I was very clear by that time that where I want to be, right? From 99 to now, we have evolved a lot, but the problem still exists, right? It's
Right.
going to go
Problems
further,
exist.
and we have to be thinking about it from a holistic view. That's what I would say. Like as an industry, that's very important to be thinking about, instead of thinking independently or separately and creating regulations which just serve a part of it.
What are you most excited about when it comes to AI?
Everything is very exciting about AI. The fact that you can give human like intelligence to AI itself is very fascinating, right? Like we humans, we evolve so much. We every year there's an evolution which happens within us as well, and the same kind of evolution and the same kind of intelligence which is given to AI, being able to do anything and everything for us is amazing, right? Like I went to the restaurant the other day, there was no waiters. There was this one robot which was serving us food, and it's so amazing. Like my son was so fascinated. So all of these kind of things which is happening in the AI means that we are all evolving as a whole, and that's amazing.
Well, it's an exciting time. I mean, we are evolving as a whole. I mean, I think it's the first technology of our lifetimes that actually I think has a massive impact on us as a species. I think the internet has had a huge impact, of course, right? And this is riding on the back of the internet, but this is also such an evolutionary technology. It's an evolutionary time. Shyamala, we look so forward to seeing you at Voice in AI in September. Thank you so much for lending your voice to our conference. And thank you so much for being a voice for this industry. You have another book that's coming out soon. Tell us about that book before we wrap up here.
Yeah, so the next book which is coming is called Invisible Threat in the Age of AI. So again, all the things we spoke about, there are so many unknown threats, there are so many known threats which we already know and have been hearing about. So this book talks about these. I've been speaking with a lot of lawmakers and a lot of responsible AI folks, and people who have worry about these things. And this book is basically going to talk about all the different kind of threats and what kind of world we can imagine with the pros and cons, and how we have to start taking those steps right on from now. So exactly the same thing, looking at it from a holistic view and then designing the solutions, because threats will be there, right? It shouldn't be that we are doing a retro, not a retro, but we are doing a more reactive kind of approach, like, oh, something has happened, now let's go back and fix. but it has to be more proactive as an industry. And this book talks about all the different things, and the what lawmakers are thinking about it in their world, what responsible AI folks are thinking in their world, and how industry or companies are thinking about it in their world, and how we can bring all of these together in a more cohesive manner.
Well, you are certainly a voice for the industry. You're showing your leadership through not only the work you do, but the books that you're writing. We know how time consuming that is, and it's amazing. It's a gift for all of us. So thank you so much for that. Again, Shyamala, I'm so grateful that you're going to be at the conference, and we really look forward to seeing you there. The event is September 5th through 7th in Washington, D.C., voiceand.ai. Shyamala, thanks so much. It's been great to get to know you a little bit better, and we'll see you in September.
Thank you so much, Pete. It's my pleasure.
I'm Pete Erickson. We've had this great chat with Shyamala Prayaga of NVIDIA. You're going to meet Shyamala in person at Voice and AI, along with thousands of others that are helping to shape and lead this industry. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you there. Check us out at voiceand.ai. Thanks so much.